my pleasure to introduce Dr. Jasper. She's an assistant research professor in the Division of Quantitative Sciences in Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology and the Center for Precision Medicine in the Department of Biomedical Informatics and Building and Interdisciplinary Research Careers in Women's Health Faculty Scholar at Vanderbilt. She's also a Precision Therapeutics Academy trainee in MPRINT, the Vanderbilt Integrated Center for Excellence, and she is an early stage investigator, having completed her doctorate in epidemiology in 2019 and a National Human Genome Research Institute T32 funded postdoctoral research fellowship at Vanderbilt, finishing that program in late 2021. So today she's going to be talking to us about building your biosketch, which will hopefully have some helpful hints for all of our trainees on board and some good refreshers for any of us faculty that are still getting back to the getting updated from the new format that is now required. So I'll let Dr. Jasper take it from here. Thank you. Could anyone hear me? Maybe I was the problem. Oh, there's no sound. Okay. Well, I guess maybe my intro was lost. So since now we're a few minutes in, I'll go ahead and just do a short introduction. We'll have Dr. Jasper present today on building your biosketch. So she's from Vanderbilt and is a junior faculty in OBGYN and precision medicine and active in the Vanderbilt core. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, Dr. Tillman, I didn't hear you introduce me. But yes, I'm Elizabeth Jasper. I'm a research assistant professor at Vanderbilt. And today I'm going to be giving a talk on building your biosketch with some helpful tips. Okay, so the biographical sketch or a biosketch is a document that details you, your qualifications, and experiences, and it should be, and I'll say this several times over the talk because I think it's very important, personalized, project and grant type specific. You'll include different things for different kinds of grants. And you really should be highlighting why you're well suited for your role in that particular project or application. They're required documents for all grant submissions, so new, resubmission, revision, renewal, and your research performance progress reports. And each senior and key personnel on the grant, as well as other significant contributors, will need a biosketch when submitting. Some funding opportunities or programs may also request a biosketch for additional personnel, so it's important to look at your announcements to see if that's in there. One example is K awards or training grants. They often request your committee members or your faculty mentors biosketch in addition to your own. Okay, so biosketches are used by NIH staff and your peer reviewers to ensure that all individuals included are equipped with the skills, knowledge, and resources necessary to carry out the project you're proposing. They're the primary tool for reviewers to learn about your training and education, your previous publications and work, your research program in general, all your professional roles, and your relationships with your co-Is or key personnel's mentor committees for training grants, as well as important accomplishments, relevant funding and experience or skills that are useful for the research proposal. Why I really wanted to talk about this today is because biosketch formats are kind of a moving target. They change every couple of years. The most recent one was actually just this year, so it is different now. On the left-hand side of the screen, it's the old, and on the right, it's the new. And I really wanted to go first through the format and content needed for biosketches, because one of the main major errors people make when making their biosketch is not following the instructions and the current format and not including the things you're supposed to within each section. So like I said, the format changed earlier this year, back in January. The old format for non-fellowships is what is on screen. Non-fellowship grants is listed again on the left side and the new on the right. So changes or updates of the biosketch that we're using now, which started in January, include section B is now changed from position and honors to position, scientific appointment and honors. And then for non-fellowship biosketches, section D has been completely removed. So no more ongoing or completed research support within the last 3 years section. For fellowship biosketches, section D has been updated to remove just the part on research support. And then we'll talk about this again, but if you want to include your research report, that's now allowed in section A, so your personal statement. So what hasn't changed? Again, all senior key personnel and other significant contributors to your project need to submit a biosketch. There's still the 5-page maximum limit per person. And in general, hyperlinks and URLs are only allowed when specifically noted in the funding opportunity announcement or the form field instructions. The use of hyperlinks is really typically limited to citing relevant publications in Biosketch and publication list. It's highly unusual for a funding announcement to allow links in documents like the Biosketch. But when you are allowed a URL link, it must have a .gov suffix to be allowed. And we'll talk about how you get that in a second. And then still, we don't allow, or they don't allow figures, tables, graphics, or embedding and attaching files. So this includes links to videos, graphics, sounds, or data. So some general guidelines are: don't include instructions, delete them after you've used them. You can't exceed your 5 pages, so make sure that you have cut it. And your personal statement should really be brief. Think 1 to 2 paragraphs, not a whole narrative or a page long. And it's important to personalize sections of the grant, like your personal statement or your contributions to science for that specific grant, and include up to 5 of your most significant contributions. Another thing that people often forget is to include your PMC IDs for all the published work that you're going to be citing in your biosketch. And then the grants that you now include in section A, if you would like, They need to be completed within the last 3 years if you're including completed grants. And then the German rule formatting is pretty much the same for all your attachment and your grants. So the font size is 11-point minimum. The type density is no more than 15 characters per line, no more than 6 per vertical inch. There's no restrictions on the color you can use, although they recommend using black or another high contrast text color so that they print well and they're legible to the largest audience. And then, of course, it's standard paper size and at least your 1/2-inch margins on all sides. So instructions apply to research, career, or K, training, T, fellowship, or F grants, and then your multi-project grants as well. So your first part of the Biosketch is relatively straightforward. It includes your name, your position title, education, and training, and for certain individuals, your ERA Commons username. The ERA Commons username is required for the PI. So this includes career development and fellowship applicants. That's you, primary sponsors of fellowship applicants, and all mentors and the candidates of those training grants or career development awards, and as well as the diversity and then re-entry research supplements. It's optional for other personnel on the grant. And then it's important to make sure your ERA Commons username in the Biosketch matches the info that you provide in the credential field of your R&R senior key personnel form in your grant application. The education block should begin with your bachelor's degree or other professional education like nursing, and then include graduate, postdoc, residency, clinical fellowship trainings as applicable. Each one will be listed on a separate line. And for each entry, you have to provide the name of the institute and location, the degree you received if that's applicable, the month and the year of the end date, or if you haven't yet graduated and you're in a PhD or other graduate program, the expected end date, and then your field of study. So for fellowship applicants only for your Biosketch, you also have to include the month and year of your start date. The next section, section A, is the personal statement. And the personal statement allows you to showcase your accomplishments and briefly describe why you are specifically well-suited and uniquely qualified for your role on this grant. So relevant factors for the personal statement section could include aspects of your training, your previous experimental work on a specific topic or related topics of the grant, your technical expertise, your collaborations or scientific environments, and you really want to note if you've worked with your co-op investigators prior to this application. And then finally, you want to include your past performance in this or related fields, including ongoing or completed research projects from the past 3 years. And again, this is where you can now include your support or grants that used to be under section D. When highlighting why you're well suited for the project, you can include a variety of research products that highlight your experience and qualifications. For the specific project, you can cite up to 4 publications or research projects that highlight your experience and your qualifications. So research projects can be a variety of things, like I said, most often they're manuscripts, but they can be conference proceedings like abstracts, patents, databases, models, protocols as well. And like I said, you can include meeting abstracts, but often this is not used for faculty who are further along in their career or for really big Rs. And you have to keep in mind in the personal statement that the use of hyperlinks and URLs to cite these items is generally not allowed. You're allowed to cite interim research projects, so things that are in preprint, but those have specific requirements if you're going to cite those. And then I think I'll say this a million times in this presentation, but when choosing the research projects to highlight, Make sure they're relevant to the grant application, really tailor your biosketch to that grant application. You can also use this area to kind of highlight your publications or your work with your co-investigators or others on the grant. And the products you highlight in the personal statement don't necessarily have to be the ones that are mentioned in section C, your scientific or contributions to science. Again, this is where you would put your ongoing and completed research, but it has to be within the past 3 years. And you don't include your percent effort or the amount of funding, but include the funding number, the funding source, dates of funding, the title, and a brief explanation. And you can include grants from the NIH or foundations, internal funding like CTSA vouchers or internal pilot awards. You can also use this section to explain impediments on your past productivity. This is particularly relevant, I think, given the pandemic. So you can discuss how the pandemic affected your research or your career, as well as if there were family care responsibilities, illnesses, deaths, disability, or military service. And then finally, you should indicate here if you've published or worked under previous names. So maybe you changed your last name when you got married. So personal statements will differ based on the grant that you are submitting. For fellowships or F grants and career development, as well as research supplement, these will be different than your R grants. You'll still want to describe aspects of your previous training and work, your technical expertise and past performance, but you also need to include points related to how the grant prepares you for the next step in your academic career. So for F grants, this includes stating your goals as well as how the grant prepares you for your academic or research future or will advance your career. And for career development or K awards, you should include how this grant, the proposed career development, training activities, and research will help you transition from a mentored scientist to independent scientist. And then candidates for the research supplements to promote diversity and health-related research should, in addition to addressing the points we just noted, also include a description of their general scientific achievements and interest and their career goals as well, and indicate any sources of educational funding. So just some general tips, don't make it too long. Ideally, it should be a paragraph or two. A full page is way too long for a personal statement, given that you're only allowed 5 pages for the biosketch anyways. Don't do essay style writing. It should mostly be a presentation of facts about you. For K and F awards, narratives and essay style writing should be limited to the candidate section of your application. And again, you can use it as a place to emphasize things about you, but you can also emphasize things about you in other grant documents like your budget justification. And then of course, write in first person for this section. All right, this is just an example of what a personal statement might look like that included ongoing and completed funding, as well as a few citations. This one was pulled from the NIH website. They give great examples for both fellowship and this one was for our grant. So I recommend going on there to look at it on examples. Okay, section B is positions, scientific appointments, and honors now. So unlike your education section in the very first part of it, you should be listing your positions, appointments, and honors in reverse chronological order. So all the current positions are listed first, and then you go backwards in time. And you should include all current positions, scientific appointments, domestic or foreign, including affiliations with foreign entities or governments. This should include titled academic or professional institutional appointments, whether or not you receive payment for them. You can also include full, part-time, or voluntary, so think adjunct, visiting, or honorary professor. For postdocs and junior faculty, remember to also list your postdoc here, and you can potentially list your teaching assistant roles if you have that as well. And then high school students or undergraduates, you can include any previous position. So if you're incoming faculty, not currently at the institution, at your applicant organization, you should include the expecting position and then the expected start date as your most current one. For each position or appointment, you should list the year started with a dash and then the year ended. For the current ones, you can put present. So positions, scientific appointments could be listed under its own underlined or bolded subheading within section B. Honors is often separated from the positions and scientific appointments and under its own underlined or bolded heading. This section can include a variety of things. You can include your special service to organizations or your study section membership. Other awards and achievements could include things like your teaching or mentorship awards, poster or abstract awards from societies or awards from professional meetings, your travel grants, or like if you're an editor for a journal. And then students, postdocs, and junior faculty really should include your scholarships, traineeships, and fellowships, as well as your career development awards if you have those in this section. And then faculty who are further along don't include anything older than from college or high school. Clinicians also need to include their licensures and special board certifications that they've achieved in this section. So this is an example, again, taken from the NIH on how you can format your positions, scientific appointments, and honors. We can see that they're separated out, and in this case, the headers are bolded. Okay, so while the personal statement is about you, the contributions to science, or section C, is really about what you've done. Generally, the format is like a numbered list with each contribution beginning with a brief narrative, normally about a paragraph. Ideally, that paragraph should include some historical background that frames the scientific problem you're going to discuss, the gap in knowledge or motivation for why you did this work, your central findings, your specific roles in the research, and then also how it's impacted science or clinical practice. So the organization of this section is kind of up to you, how you group the contributions. They could be grouped by development of different state-of-the-art tools or data sources, specific cohorts or health conditions and research focuses, or based on population. Like for mine, I'm a maternal child health genetic epidemiologist. I group mine according to maybe one section on the preterm population and another section focusing on reproductive health in pregnant women or pregnant persons. Senior faculty often make it specific on research or topics under their focus, but you can also, I've seen for junior faculty, group it by career stage. So your early undergrad, your graduate, your postdoc, and your early faculty. You can also group it based on translational impact. Then for bio sketches of mentors on a training award, this is pretty important. The contributions to science could include not only their research, but also things like their expertise applicable to the research proposal or specific techniques used in it, as well as their mentoring in the past or their mentors' accomplishments and the translational impact of their previous or current mentees' work. So in the contributions to science section, you can briefly describe up to 5 contributions. So you'll have to choose your most significant ones. Each of those contributions can cite up to 4 publications or research projects. And again, research projects, just like in the personal statement section, can be a variety of things, conference proceedings, posters, abstracts, most often they're manuscripts. If you're not an author on the product, you have to indicate your role or what your contribution was. And you can include manuscripts in progress or under development in the text part, so that paragraph where you're describing your contributions, but you can only cite accepted publications to support that contribution. Again, you're allowed to cite interim products like preprints, but they have their own specific citation style that you can find on the NIH. And just like every other section, really, the use of hyperlinks and URLs to cite these items is not allowed. Another important thing to keep in mind is each highlighted reference should have a PMC ID, or at least a note saying not applicable, or it's been applied for, but it hasn't been assigned yet. Another thing that is helpful to reviewers is to bold your name within each citation. This will help them identify you quickly in a list of maybe potentially long author list. And then typically the description of each scientific contribution is about a half a page, and that includes both the paragraph or the little blurb you write about it, and then the citations as well. So just like your personal statement, you should customize this section to the application when you can. So again, for an example, if your mentor, your contributions to science might align more with your mentee's research proposal or training and less on your own significant contributions to science or what you believe are your most significant. If you're a new scholar or early career investigator, you might not have 5 contributions. I certainly don't, which is completely understandable. In that case, I have always been advised to focus on 2 to 3 strong contributions that you didn't discuss in your personal statement. And then another important thing is you can include a small note on your total number of publications at the bottom of these contributions and provide a URL link to a list of your published work. It's not required, but if you do include one, remember it has to have a .gov suffix. So I would recommend using the My Bibliography to create this link because it'll automatically end in a .gov. And you want to make sure that it's updated because you have to update it every so often, and that it is public so that reviewers could type it in and actually see it. This is an example, again, from a non-fellowship grant, an R grant from the NIH, what a contribution to science would look like with the bulleted contributions, and then up to 4 citations underneath it. Okay, so a note on the publication part, especially if you're including that link. You can use them in CBI to document all your publications, and you can link that to your existing or completed grants. It will allow you to create your own personal My Bibliography that you can have that link for, and make sure it's a public link so others can view it. And your PMC IDs, again, are required in your Biosketch. You should update the My Bibliography regularly to ensure that all of your papers as they are coming out are in there. So this is kind of what it would look like. It's a little blurred out, but you can add your funding and then you have your citations within My Bibliography. So there are some other Biosketch changes. For fellowship applications, Section D still exists. It's renamed Scholastic Performance. So there's no more other support within that. So only applicants for dissertation research, pre-doctoral, postdoctoral fellowships, and candidates for research supplements to promote diversity and health-related research from undergrad all the way through postdoc are required to fill these section D out. And what that specifically looks like is for pre-doc applicants, you will list your institution, year, and grade. And then for postdoc, same thing, list year and grade as well. And then you should explain the grading system if it's not a stereotypical grading scale, so 1 to 100 or A, B, C, D, F, or a 4.0 scale. And then you need to indicate the level that is a passing grade. All right, so NIH provides formatted templates to prepare their Biosketch, or you can use this Science Experts Network Curriculum Vitae Science CV. It's a tool that will help you generate and manage your Biosketch over time. It's also located in NCBI, and it will nicely spit out your Biosketch for you either as a PDF or a Word document or XML. Okay. So there are several general pointers you can get on the format, but looking at examples is really important. There are a number that you can just Google and find online, including some great YouTube videos or some sources through other academic institutions. There are also publicly available checklists, which are very helpful to ensure that you have everything required or suggested to be in certain sections of your Biosketch. Some institutions have specific resources as well. So, for example, Vanderbilt, where I'm from, has a funded grants library that lets you view other Vanderbilt researchers' funded grants, which includes all their components like Biosketches. And then remember that the trainee and the R equivalent Biosketches are different in terms of personal statements and what to highlight. Looking at examples of these, particularly if you've never written a trainee one and you're going to write that and you've only seen maybe your mentors who has an R1 formatted for Rs, really important to get other examples of that. You should also get feedback from your mentors or your peers. Some institutions also have Biosketch workshops where you can bring your Biosketch and get feedback on it or tips on how to improve it, which is also very helpful. And then figure out your preferred style for describing yourself in a personal statement. Everyone's different, and that's totally okay. So remember that your Biosketch isn't a static document. You should tailor it when you can to specific proposals in your role within their proposals. Reviewers really want to know how you're qualified for that job, and if you have publications or previous work and the appropriate time or effort to devote to that project. So you should update your Biosketch continuously. I recommend kind of keeping a master or way too big over a 5-page document where you can pull different contributions to science or personal statements, sections, and then pull from those to create project-specific ones. It makes it a little bit easier, and then you don't have to keep updating changes in your positions or honors. If this is the first time, your first time writing a Biosketch, you don't have to write them in order. You don't have to go personal statement, positions, scientific appointments, and honors and contributions. I found that very difficult the first time I did it. It might be easier to write your contributions to science and then your honors and positions, and then refresh your memory from there, and then you can write your personal statement. Okay, and again, the personal statement is about you. The contributions are about what you have done. So your personal statement should really kind of tell a little bit of a story, but not too long or narrative. Make it personal, make it compelling, market yourself, convey your excitement for the project or your role in the project. And then for certain really big honors, like receiving an F-31 as a graduate student, a T-32 as a postdoc, or any of the Ks, you should list those in multiple locations on your biosketch to really stress it and drive it into your reviewers' heads. You can put them in your honor section, you can put them in your personal statement, and they can also be mentioned in your contributions to science as well. And then it goes without saying, but review your biosketch for spelling and grammar errors. Double check that link to your publications, if you include it, works, and that you've included all your PMCIDs or the note that says it's not applicable or coming. And list your publications in reverse chronological order, so your most recent first. And then keep in mind, like we just saw, that happened this year, NIH changes their biosketch requirements every couple of years, so you'll need to know that when you're submitting your grant. Make sure you're using the current format and complying with the new biosketch guidelines and instructions. Okay. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Can you hear me? This is Emma.
Prince. Yes.
Oh,
I've
okay.
also seen first and third person for personal statement. I don't think there's a rule per se on what is acceptable, but from what I've seen from other faculty and what I've been advised, you really want to do first person. Great question. All right. Well, thank you all for the opportunity. Happy to chat with anyone who would like more guidance on their biosketch or a peer reviewer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jasper. We really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your presentation. And if you have any other questions or concerns, you can always direct them to me and I can get them to Dr. Jasper. Thank you.